The story begins with two people in the film named Hwarim, a female psychic with special abilities, and Bongil, a male psychic. They travel to Los Angeles to meet a client who requested their services. Upon arrival, they go to a hospital to check on a baby named Kalayan, who is experiencing supernatural disturbances. The mother initially doubts Hwarim and Bongil's abilities, but Hwarim is used to disbelief. She performs a ritual and discovers that the disturbances come from the family's ancestors. After the hospital investigation confirms this, the mother is shocked. Hwarim and Bongil then meet the baby's father, Mr. Jung, who hired them. He explains that he initially doubted the supernatural, but changed his mind when his younger sibling and baby were affected. Despite opposition from other family members, Mr. Jung sought help from Hwarim and Bongil. Hwarim informs Mr. Jung that the disturbances are caused by his ancestors being buried in the wrong place and need to be moved or cremated. Therefore, Hwarim sought help from his teacher, Sangdok, who was an expert in Pangshui science, and another expert named Yongjen, who specialized in cemeteries. Together, they aimed to uncover the cause of the disturbances, similar to a previous case where they discovered a disturbance was caused by a grandchild taking a gold tooth from a grave. After Sangdok and Yongjen completed their work, Hwarim and Bongil approached them to offer a job for a high fee, which Sangdok and Yongjen accepted. Despite the risks, Hwarim led the four psychics to solve Mr. Jung's problem by attempting to move his ancestor's grave. Upon reaching Pak Jong's ancestral grave on the hill, the psychic became even more astonished. He sensed something peculiar hidden by Pak Jeong. After careful observation, he concluded that moving Pak Jeong's ancestral grave was impossible. This surprised Hwarim and the others, as it was the first time they encountered such an obstacle. Despite Hwarim's efforts to persuade him, the psychic refused to continue, fearing the cursed nature of the place and the lack of safety guarantees. However, Mr. Jeong insisted on Hwarim's help, fearing for his newborn baby's safety. Upon hearing Mr. Jeong's plea, Hwarim decides to proceed with a ritual called replacement crime. This ritual aims to deceive the evil spirit, ensuring that removing Pak Jong's grave wouldn't bring disaster. Despite Sangdok's opposition, Hwarim remains determined. During the ritual, Hwarim dances while holding a sharp weapon, seemingly possessed, while Bongil plays a drum. After the ritual, Yongjen instructs the gravedigger to excavate the coffin. Initially, everything goes smoothly, but unbeknownst to them, after their departure, one of the gravediggers encounters a snake. In panic, the gravedigger hacks the snake with the scoop, unaware of the consequences. It turned out that the snake was a fake, but ominous signs appeared as dark clouds gathered, hinting at impending trouble. The sudden rain forced the experienced psychic to advise Mr. Jeong to postpone the burial until the next day, deeming it a bad omen. Pak Jong's coffin was placed in a mortuary, guarded by Yongjen. Still sensing something amiss, the psychic visited a temple far from the mountains, following a sign of Pangshui. There, he encountered a man and inquired about the history of Pak Jong's grave on the mountain. The man informed him that according to rumors, Pak Jong's grave belonged to the richest man in the north and was a target for grave robbers. However, no one had ever succeeded in opening the tomb, leading to the belief that it was impossible. Disturbed by this revelation, the psychic hurried to contact Hwarim. Meanwhile, the guard assigned to Pak Jong's coffin had been tempted by the treasures inside and attempted to open it. When Hwarim and Bongil arrived, the coffin had been partially opened, releasing a cold air that caused Hwarim to faint. Yongjen and the psychic rushed Hwarim to the hospital. Hwarim explained that an evil entity had emerged from the coffin along with one of Pak Jong's relatives, who became a victim of the supernatural figure. Hwarim performed a ritual to lure the entity into Bongil's body to learn its intentions, discovering its desire to destroy all of Pak Jong's descendants. In response, Hwarim urgently contacted Sangdok to rush to Mr. Jeong's place. He warned Pak Jong to stay away from the door and open the window due to the supernatural threat. However, the one who contacted Mr. Jeong was not Sangdok, but a supernatural spirit. Meanwhile, the real Sangdok was outside Pak Jong's door. Mr. Jeong became possessed by the spirit of Doki's father. When Sangdok arrived later and witnessed Mr. Zhang's strange behavior, Pak Zhang suddenly collapsed unconscious. The situation now posed a greater threat to the safety of Mr. Jiang's family. The doctor urgently contacted Huarim and the others to wash Pak Zhang's ancestors' bodies immediately. Failure to do so would endanger Pak Zhang's entire family, including the baby. It was evident that the supernatural spirit was targeting the baby. Fortunately, Huarim and the others acted swiftly and washed the body of Mr. Zhang. Meanwhile, the doctor received a report about the gravedigger's father falling seriously ill after returning from the grave site. Intrigued, the doctor went to meet him and observed his strange behavior. The father kept mentioning the imitation snake he had accidentally placed in Pak Zhang's grave. Mr. Zhang sensed that something was amiss. So, the doctor returned to Mr. Zhang's ancestral grave to investigate the gravedigger's claims. After some digging, the doctor was shocked to discover a strange snake-like creature with a head resembling a dead janglet. Accidentally touching something with his scoop, he uncovered a coffin. However, something seemed off. The coffin's position wasn't normal, and it was chained with iron. The doctor contacted Yongzhen, Bonggil, and Huarim to come immediately. Upon their arrival, they were stunned to find the coffin chained and unusually tall, suggesting something sinister beyond their ancestors' spirits. Mr. Zhang suggested leaving the coffin buried, but the doctor feared a disaster if they did so, having already broken the seal. They felt they had no choice but to proceed. As evening approached, the four of them carried the mysterious coffin. The doctor took the initiative to visit the middle-aged man at the temple for help. He requested to stay overnight and find a place for the mysterious coffin. Sensing the tension, Huarim asked the middle-aged man for sticky rice to sprinkle around the coffin. Additionally, he instructed Bonggil to bring white horse blood in the car to enhance the protection. To bolster the magical barrier, the doctor, still grasping the gravity of the situation, contacted Aunt Pak Zhang and disclosed everything without withholding any details. Aunt Pak Zhang arrived and revealed that Pak Zhang's ancestor was a northern trader who had sided with Japan. She was unaware of the existence of another coffin beneath her ancestor's grave and could only provide an old photo of her ancestor. She acknowledged the lack of information regarding the mysterious coffin. The doctor asked Bonggil to recite a spell and pray for everyone's safety. After enjoying a meal provided by the old man, they went to sleep, unaware of the impending danger. As the night grew darker, the old man heard a noise and went to investigate. Meanwhile, while Bonggil slept, he felt a weight pressing down on him, a sensation known as Kadingang Uparup in Sundanese. Using his remarkable abilities in spiritual matters, Bonggil expelled the spirit and heard a noise coming from the direction of the coffin. Shocked by what he saw, Bonggil hurried to Huarim in the car. They were alarmed to find the coffin broken, allowing the body inside to escape through the roof unhindered. Bonggil, recalling the earlier apparition, trembled in fear, his usual expression replaced with one of shock. Huarim instructed Bonggil to wake up the doctor and Yongzhen. Shortly after Bonggil left, Huarim spotted an apparition behind the door, a towering jurig clad in ancient battle attire, holding a sword and speaking Japanese. Huarim realized this jurig was unlike any supernatural being he had faced before. He quickly prostrated, pretending to be a subordinate, but the jurig saw through his ruse and attempted to harm him. Huarim remained cautious, refusing to flee. When Bonggil arrived to help, he tried to lift the jurig's sword with iron. Despite Bonggil's efforts, the iron had no effect on the tall jurig, and Bonggil became its victim. However, just as the tall jurig was about to harm Huarim, a monk intervened, distracting the creature. The tall jurig then transformed into fire and vanished, leaving Sangdok and Yongzhen astonished by what they witnessed. After the tall jurig departed, Huarim instructed Sangdok to call an ambulance for Bonggil. Bonggil was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Meanwhile, Sangdok returned to the temple to assess the situation and uncover the truth behind the tall jurig's identity. Remembering the middle-aged man's words about grave robbers' belongings in the temple warehouse, the doctor searched until he found a photo depicting the thieves mentioned by the middle-aged man. Mr. Parabaya's words and the tools used by the doctor led to the conclusion that the group referred to by Mr. Parabaya were not tomb thieves but rather burialers from his time. Upon finding this clue, the doctor returned to the tomb to search for more evidence. Meanwhile, Hwarim, who was in the hospital, was visited by Bongil's relatives. Knowing that Bongil was possessed by the tall Jurig, Hwarim sought their help to conduct a spirit summoning ritual. During the ritual, Hwarim questioned the tall Jurig about its identity and motives for impersonating Bongil. The tall Jurig revealed itself as a Japanese war general serving the emperor, seeking a new vessel to return to life and protect an entrusted object. Meanwhile, Doki, digging in the grave, discovered the body of the tall Jurig and witnessed its return to the grave. The doctor approached Yongjen to discuss a discovery, a cursed iron causing the cursed land. To break the curse, they needed to find the iron, likely in the tomb. Hwarim was afraid to search for the iron as it would challenge death, but it was their only hope to save Bongil. If they didn't act, Bongil's body would be completely taken over by the tall Jurig. With no other choice, Hwarim agreed to Sangdok's plan to lure the cursed Jurig out of its grave. However, their conversation was interrupted when Humpback experienced a seizure. While the doctor treated him, Hwarim and Bongil noticed that the tall Jurig avoided hurting the parts of Bongil's body with tattoos. They capitalized on this by temporarily drawing tattoos on their faces to protect themselves. Hwarim, Sangdok, and Yongjen returned to the hill where the tall Jurig's grave was located. They baited the tall Jurig with fish and hid, waiting for it to wake up. Meanwhile, Bongil's relatives prepared to go to the hospital. When the tall Jurig revealed its form, they lured it to a tree smoked by the doctor. Hwarim and Yongjen then went to dig at the grave while Hwarim stalled for time by engaging the tall Jurig in conversation, pretending to be a guardian spirit on the hill. Despite Hwarim's attempts to convince the tall Jurig that the war was over, it refused to accept it, believing that the war was still ongoing. Hwarim, while suppressing his fear, urged the tall Jurig to leave the hill. Meanwhile, Sangdok and Yongjen, frustrated by their inability to find what they sought, abandoned their search due to the increasing threat to their lives. As Hwarim stalled for time, the tall Jurig discovered his actions and attempted to attack him. Thankfully, Hwarim's grandmother, the Karahan ancestor, intervened, allowing Hwarim to escape and meet Sangdok. Unfortunately, they found nothing, and their situation grew dire when a fiery manifestation of the tall Jurig headed towards the tomb where Sangdok was. As the tall Jurig tried to seize Sangdok's heart, Hwarim and Yongjen intervened with the horse blood, causing the tall Jurig to vanish momentarily. However, it quickly returned and grabbed Hwarim and Yongjen. Sangdok then realized that the cursed iron they sought was within the tall Jurig himself. Understanding that wet would symbolize the opposite of the tall Jurig, Sangdok used the hoe handle to strike the creature, causing it immense pain. He then delivered the final blow, eliminating the tall Jurig forever. After the supernatural incident and the disappearance of the tall Jurig, Bongil regained consciousness. Hwarim and Yongjen remained at the hospital to monitor the doctor's health. Over time, Bongil's condition improved, and they waited for the doctor to recover. After a few months, Sangdok's health improved, although the trauma lingered for Hwarim. Despite the lingering fear of the tall Jurig, they slowly moved on. The film concluded with the four of them living a peaceful life, celebrating at their son's wedding. Applause filled the ending scene, signifying the close of their harrowing journey. If you enjoy the video, please hit the like button and subscribe the channel. It takes several days to create single video, but only few seconds for you to give us confidence.